to learn that we cannot depend upon what we have to get this thing cleaned up. We've got to depend upon what we are and do it. And when we go in to find out what we are, perhaps we will discover we need a little refreshment along the way. We have so long gone on the basis of doing as we please that we do not realize that salvation is an exact science. It is a great religion, it is a great mystery, it is a great philosophy, it is a great policy, but it is also a great science. In science, if you do a certain thing, you get a certain result. In morality, if you act in a certain way, the consequences will follow. And there is no way of escaping them. So in the daily thinking of religion, we have to realize that there are things we have to do, there are principles we have to keep, and there are most of all changes that we must make in ourselves. As far as the ancients were concerned, and we've done very little better, there is no essential virtue in membership. No matter what you belong to, you can make the same mistakes, and they're being made all over the world by every believer and all the non-believers also, because the mistakes are simply selfishness. The individual intends to do what he intends to do, and he would like to do it in a way that will enable him to become rich and famous. These motives are present wherever there are world changes at the present time. But in addition to this type of thing, we have the definite realization that all these different principles have to be done. How many people do we actually know who believe in the Ten Commandments, and yet at the same time will not almost daily compromise one of them in order to do something they want to do? I know one case in which the symbolism is quite obvious. A person coming out of church, talking to another person coming out of church, points out someone up in front who's just come out of church and says, "I can't stand that unbearable woman." And they've just come out of a Christian church when they say it. Now something is wrong. And yet it would be almost impossible to prevent that person from saying, "Well, she is impossible." But this isn't the point. Nothing seems to change as a result of sermonizing. Sometimes it does. It has its use. But it's not going to be the answer to the problem at the moment. We are not going to be made whole by preachment. We are going to be made whole by the discovery, for the first time, as far as modern man is aware, that the whole government lies within ourselves. That we have the right to live right regardless of anything. And that we have right to enjoy right living to the same extent that we now usually enjoy breaking a good rule. We like now to break rules. That gives us freedom, gives us a sense of superiority, when in reality keeping rules gives us the fact of personal survival in all emergencies. There is no reason why religion cannot make people happy. There is no reason why there has to be a Spanish Inquisition in which half a country is slain to take care of a theological belief. There is no need for inquisitions. There is no need for these tremendous crusades in which tens of thousands died. All these things are passed off as heroic examples of religion. What they are is an example of what happens when you try to avoid personal responsibility. When you're willing to go out and die for a faith, but you won't go home and live a belief that is suitable to the perpetuation of your society. These things we have to do something about. We are now moving into a sphere of practicality. Every branch of knowledge has got to prove that it does something permanently right. It has got to prove, as science must, that science is making us better people, not richer people. We have to have politics that makes us true to the highest principles of statesmanship and not something to be used for personal advantage. If we have money as we know it today, we must be having it to prove conclusively that we do know and understand the right use of it. Everywhere right usage or right action must come into dominance. Now, it's not as bad as it sounds. Most people think that sounds pretty terrible. But it does not sound nearly as bad as the mess we're in right now. Because for a little effort, we can perhaps enjoy and build a quiet community security. Whereas at the present time, in our desperate effort to protect an ignorant relationship with life, we are gradually moving ourselves off of the planet. So we have all these things to think about, but religion has to be a part, because it is the only branch of learning that we have, or the only area in which we connect or communicate with the inner realities of life. We have a soul power and a mystical experience, and we have the possibility of gradually experiencing the inward reality of the immediate presence of God. We do not know whether other people will see it that way or not. They will have their own experience. But whatever the experience will be, it is an experience of the same divine power. Their experience will look different, but it must be the same as all others. All who have a mystical experience must finally come to the same conclusion. And if they come to an opposite conclusion, it's because their own subconscious pressure is permitting them to continue to maintain an illusion. Therefore, if we are right, inside of ourselves there is a power to help us to stay that way and to spread that right and to do as we should with it with other people. If we are unable to make that strong adjustment, then the time has come for us to send our own souls to school. It is time definitely for us to take hold of our own lives and begin to make it straight. If it isn't straight enough for us, then we must make it straight. Usually, however, this isn't the problem at all. We don't have to really reform the soul. The real troublemaker in the whole situation is the mind. The mind is the slayer of the real, says the Bhagavad Gita. And this is our problem. The victory of the mind over the soul is our trouble. The victory of the soul over the mind is redemption. As long as the mind is constantly conspiring for its own advantages, the soul suffers in silence. It is imprisoned within a cage of intellect. It is the servant in which we use it only to support what we want to believe. And under those conditions, the real soul has no chance. A false belief cannot be part of the soul. It must arise in the mind and be supported by the emotions, but it cannot arise from the depths of the consciousness at the source of human life. Behind everything that we see and know and experience, there is a spark of life. What that spark of life is, no scientist has dared to guess. That spark of life is in the stars, in space, in the infinite. Where it comes from, no one knows. But it is an infinite spark of infinite life. And the little ray of that spark shines in the soul of every person. This does not mean that every person has a separate spark of God in them, but it means that all persons together are one person with one spark of one God, regardless of what they think, believe, or try to do. But there is this power within us that does all kinds of wonders for all kinds of creatures. It puts the color in the wings of butterflies. It gives the urges to life and expressed through plants, through flowers, through everything. There is only one life, and that one life is orderly, that one life is lawful, that one life has only one purpose, the perfection of all that lives. And either we find out a little about keeping that law, though we may not understand it. If we do not recognize it and obey its laws as they manifest in daily living, we will be in serious trouble. We can never find a human will or a human mind strong enough to protect us when the need for the discovery of soul power comes upon us. We have to have the power of the soul. And this soul is the infinite wisdom, love, and truth of life which has to come. Now, we've fought it a long time. We see now that the Chinese are beginning to realize that they were wrong. They don't read the Mao's little red book anymore because they discovered that he didn't know as much as he thought he knew. And they thought he knew. But they did not get the answer because Mao could not get down on his knees and pray for light. Now we have the same thing in Russia. Their socialism is tottering, is in trouble. Their system will not work because they have exiled deity, or at least have made deity unimportant in the development of a sociology. So they are in trouble, and they will always be in trouble. Again, every government will be in trouble. And we have troubles here. They have troubles in every country of the world because of the victory of self-will over divine will. They have determined to do things their way, and their way was always in terms of fame and profit. They want to create a world in a sandbox. They have forgotten that the creation process has already accomplished this. We have the world, the best world that there can ever be, if we will make it that way. But this idea that we can change things by ignoring realities is a dead and lost cause. So gradually, in a mysterious way, religion is sneaking back. Ideals are sneaking back. Now we've got another job to consider. They should not sneak back into their old form. They should not go back into the orthodoxies which are no longer acceptable. They should go forward to the realization of the one divine truth at the source of all that lives. They should march forward to the experience of God and not back to rambling over theologies. We do not want more sects to come up. We do not want more pathways to be found to lead us across the bridge. What we really need is the experience of the power of the internal good over the external uncertainty. We need to realize the immediate experience of God is the mystical experience which has been present in all the great spiritual teachers of mankind. They have not taught according to fashion. They have not according to profit. They haven't done it in order to take over countries. They have done it in order to fulfill the destiny of the world soul, as this world soul is expressed in the conduct of human beings and the laws that are established to take care of our society. So we are here again now on Christmas, a Christmas which is very important. We are here to celebrate the annual birth of the soul. We are here to restate our allegiance to that which is eternal. Now, it has been natural and useful to almost always think of Christmas as a child's holiday. We think of it when we must remember the little children, and what do we give them? An armful of presents and toys and enough candy to sicken them for a month. We give them all kinds of things everywhere. Yet, for all of us, it is proper that Christmas should be a child's holiday. And all of us, including the long gray beards, are children. We are all children. We are all little ones. We're studying in the school of the Holy Spirit. We are all little children who will enjoy the toys of life. And we know that many of these toys are beautiful. We know that we don't have to have toys that are miniature rifles or miniature machine guns. That toys are like life itself. Most of the experiences we live through are the experiences of children playing with toys. We play toys with family. We play toys with our own children. And we make all kinds of toys to please ourselves and others. But in the last analysis, we are all small children glorying in the holiday of the Christmas tree. We are here as a symbol of salvation. The tree itself is apparently, according to tradition at least, the invention of Martin Luther, who was the first to make a Christmas tree and hang various symbols on it to represent the universe and life. He wanted it to be the tree growing in the beautiful forest surrounded by stars and by all the lights of life. So he made the Christmas tree as we know it now. But the Christmas tree is a symbol of everlasting life. It is a symbol of giving to those who come after us the blessed gift of the wisdom, love, and understanding that we have gained and must pass on. The only heritage that one generation can give to another is the heritage of experienced realities, has a heritage of greater vision, deeper understanding, broader thinking, and kindlier attitudes towards each other. These are the great gifts, the gifts that must now be given. We are on the verge of a new century. We have a Christmas tree that pretty soon we will remember in relation to the 21st century. We are going to go on, but we should understand what this all means. We are passing on to the future not only our miseries but our hopes. We are passing on to the future the fulfillment of our dreams and aspirations. But we could not fulfill them ourselves because we could not clear our minds of the selfishness, self-centeredness, and ignorance which has afflicted us for the last 2,000 years and probably 10,000 before that. Therefore, what we really have to realize at this time is there is no use passing on to the next generation just our mistakes, or the remedies which we find won't work. We could give them our financial system and they'd go broke. We could give them our educational system and they would remain ignorant. There's no use of trying to pass what we have on to the future in just the way we have it. The future will literally die a little sooner, and we will all be a little worse. And there are children coming into the world now who have to live in that future, and they will have nothing but the miseries we have if we pass on to them only the ways we do things. If we pass on to that generation nuclear fission, if we pass on to that generation poison gas, or world bankruptcy, or feuding of nations, or the amassing of evils, or the massacring of hostages, all these things will be a terrible thing with which to blight the future, to blight the unborn years of the ones who are coming in now. What we must try to convert to them or convey to them is soul power. We must prove to them for once and for all that we realize we did it wrong, that there is nothing irreparable or nothing terrible about making a mistake. But there is something unfortunate when you make the same mistake repeatedly over a period of ages. Then it gets to be a little ridiculous. We are not going to be blamed for our mistakes. Everyone makes them. The next generation will make its own mistakes, but there's no reason why it should have to make ours. And if we don't do something in the next 10 or 12 years, we're going to pass on something that is as dismal and unsolvable by us as we think it should be solved in some other generation. There is no reason to hope that we can do nothing but pass on a system which we have lost faith in and which is no longer protecting us from the dismal results of our own wrong attitudes. We've got to start in by giving them a little bit of a cleaning up. We've got to give them a little Christmas present too, a little symbol of the fact that we have seen, that we have known, and that we have begun to understand the mystery of the victory of soul over mind and body. We are going to have to give them an example of what it meant to face a problem squarely and fairly and solve it to the best of our possible abilities. We want to pass on a better generation than we have known in this century. And in order to do that, we must realize that this is idealism. That idealism is another name for the deepest phase of religious belief. Idealism is the experience of the divine purpose in our own daily lives. It is the recognition of the infinite goodness at the source of existence, which we have constantly denied and which we are daily destroying. All of these things are part of the new age. They are part of the generation that is coming up. and that we are responsible not to give that new generation a hopeless heritage. We are worried now concerning the children born today from parents who are not responsible, who are not properly integrated, who are not even healthy, and certainly do not understand the experiences of the inner life. We are worried about these children that are coming now. How about the ones that will be 10 years old in another 10 years? What are we going to do about that? Are they going to go on perpetuating the mistakes of their ancestors? Are they going to have in their veins blood that is sick? Are we going to find them all part of this running down and falling apart world that we are now suffering from? Or are we going to do something about it? The time is now, and the time is to prepare the legacy. We go out and buy toys for the kiddies. We get up a tree, nice little one like this right here, for our families and our loved ones. We've got to fix up a tree for the Christmas of the year 2001. A tree that contains the flowers of our love and our respect. It contains the wisdom of a repentant people who have suddenly realized the mistakes of ages. We've got to find people in that time who will be able to benefit by our direct and honest affection, by the fact that we are no longer going to make up excuses and have all kinds of wordings to do things, but we're going to straighten it out, and we're going to say to our children, here is a clean world that we have polished a little for you, that we've made it right and straight. Now you keep it that way. But if we give them a world and say to them, we're in horrible trouble, save us, if you'll have to make it right because we can't, we've got another century gone. This means in politics and science and art, and music and literature that we should begin to develop soul power. The soul of music is not hard rock. The soul of art is not post-impressionism. The soul of literature is not one of the present popular novels. All these things are part of a decadence which we have allowed and which is gradually destroying us. And we're going to pass this on to another century. We're making a very tragic mistake. We are damning the future for the mistakes that we have made. So instead of that, let's, even if we have to go out of our way a little bit, do a little more than we would normally do, let's try to build into each of our lives as people, as individuals, a new sense of values, an ability to appreciate the good in other people, and a greater demand to appreciate the good in beauty, not to patronize or turn on the TV on things that are unworthy. That we are no longer out for sensationalism. What we're out for is inspiration. We're out for the strength to do something better than we've ever done it before. And as individuals to live our own lives a little better than we've ever lived them before. That we're going to forget the animosities and the excuses. We're going to get over the jealousies and the ambitions that are unreasonable, and gradually try to save this planet from the chaos which is developing in it as a result of our own constant mistakes. In the last 4 or 5 years, nations have fallen apart. We have had a greater amount of tragedy, pain, and misery than any civilized nation should ever be faced with, or a civilized generation. We find all the old hate springing up again. We find the old corruption stepping in. We are faced with narcotics as never before. We are faced with AIDS. We are faced with all kinds of challenges which very largely add up to our own unwillingness to live straight, an inability to control ourselves. And many of these things are the result of the discouragements and disillusionments we have passed on to children and to others who have lost faith in a world of integrities. We cannot afford to pass that on to the 21st century. If we do, we are going to find that skill without light is going to end in chaos. We will have the ultimate invention, but we will not survive it. So we might just as well begin to think in terms of a little peace and quiet, a little gentleness and a kindly garden. We were given a garden and we have made it a graveyard, not only for bodies but for dreams, for hopes, for ideals and for principles. We have taken a magnificent destiny and corrupted it, not necessarily because we were not educated, but because we were not enlightened. These things have to be changed. We have time enough to do it. And there is something that everyone can do, because everyone can start with himself and make sure that he is adding nothing to the common trouble. He can also find ways of expressing the release of his own soul power. The soul power in the individual is the God power in him. In this soul power he can help the sick and the tired and the heavy laden. He can bring peace to the troubled. He can make his own life more constructive. He can end forever the animosities that he has nursed. Maybe they were genuine. Maybe he feels that he was really suffering from the deeds of others. But no individual who suffers only from the deeds of others can go through this experience unless he nurses that suffering with his own mind. He can forgive. We are told to forgive our enemies. We are told to forgive unto 70 times. Well, most people don't make that one time for forgiveness. And certainly by 70 times we should get rid of it. But we don't, because we never try 70 times. Actually, we have got to change the practice of our lives. We have got to be controlled by the soul within ourselves, which is the God in us, the hope of glory. It is the deity in our hearts and souls that is that fragment or that little ray from the eternal life which guards all things. In bodies and in nations and races we are divided, but in soul power we are one people, indivisible. And if we can learn to let the soul have victory over the mind and the body, there will be no more war, no more selfishness, no more suffering, no more poverty. But life can become one eternal Christmas time, because every moment the eternal is sending blessings and gifts to us, but we do not recognize them and we do not know how to use them. So let's make it a very, very good Christmas at this time. Let's try very hard to prove that we can go into the next century with a greater understanding and deeper feelings and more universal love for life and people than we've ever had before. If we do not make this, I'm afraid we're going to have very serious trouble. If we do make it, we can be for the first time the people that we were intended to be in the infinite wisdom. Merry Christmas to you all and blessings. I believe Pearl tells me they're going to move this little tree into the library so that you can always enjoy it a little more. So we hope you'll all go in and enjoy the tree.